Hello and welcome to Two Guys Talking Craft, our latest episode, where tonight we're going to take a different direction, a new turn. We're going to be dissecting the world of Uta Hagen and in particular her book, Respect for Acting as well. Jared from Actors Approach Craft Technique TOOLBOX will be along to join me, as always, just in a little second. And over the next 60 minutes, we're going to be chatting all about the great Uta Hagen and what our learnings have been from her. We've done a deep dive into her. We're looking forward to comparing notes and maybe trying out some of the exercises, some of the learnings that we've come across in part one of Respect for Acting. And here's the man himself. It's Jared Kellner, everybody.
Hey, it was just a delay. Hope all's well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, my friend. Yeah, hope you're well. Nice beard action going on there, Jared. I like it a lot.
I shaved off the nonsense before. It was so, they don't talk about it, how itchy beards are. After like 2 weeks, I couldn't take it. I wanted to bang my head against the wall. I woke up in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. and just shaved it off. I couldn't take it anymore. So it's growing back out again. But oh my God, it's so itchy.
Respect, Jared. And wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody who is joining us as well. Shout out to Machu and Indra, and anybody else that's joining us tonight on the live. And if it's your first time joining us, we are Two Guys Talking Craft. A guy from Scotland and a guy from the USA. Do you think they'll guess which one of us is which?
The one that sounds better is the one from Scotland. That's true.
Each week or every 2 weeks we discuss, dissect, share our experiences of acting craft technique, and we've been doing so for a little while now, and here we are at episode 18, I believe, Jared.
Yeah.
And as always, we are incredibly grateful for everybody who's come along on the journey with us, if you've listened to one episode, a few episodes, all episodes, we love it. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And it's always our aim and our ambition that you get as much value as you can from these sessions, and that you find things that are actionable and that you can take away into your own acting lives and, try them out, basically. So, Jared, we're taking a little bit of a different meander here. We've been looking at the world of Meisner in the past few weeks, and if people want to listen to previous episodes, they're up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Anchor, on Instagram Live TV, if anybody wants to check those out. This is a little new direction for us, right?
Yeah, just harkening back on what we did over the last, 4 or 5 sessions with Meisner. Look, I think if somebody has an interest in learning about Sanford Meisner's approach, if you go back and listen to all of the podcasts that we did, you'll have a really solid foundation. I mean, obviously, without taking classes, whether online or live in a studio, if that's possible, the next best thing you can do to reading the books is listen to these podcasts that you and I created. We dove in really deep for quite some time, and I went back and I listened to them as well, and I was really proud of the stuff that we explored. So kudos to you.
Right back at you, my friend.
We did good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at this.
Oh, I mean, that was impressive special effects. If you listen to the podcast,
Uta Hagen. What? I bought this book so long ago. So look, today we're going to go on an adventure, start talking about Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting, and we'll see how far we get. I know the both of us read section 1, maybe up to page 80 something before we get into the actual exercises. And I mean, you can see this. I have so many little tabs and notes to talk about. We're not going to get through all of this in one call. So, 1, 2, 3 calls we'll go through and just have a conversation about Uta Hagen's approach and just see where it goes, right? Just really fluid. But I'm excited.
1,000,000%. Absolutely. And I think anybody joining us on the live, if you want to jump in, share your thoughts, your feelings, opinions on this as well. We want this to be an open discussion. And I'm exactly the same as you. My notes were slightly different. I was sort of taking notes on like an
I
email
typed them
document.
out too. Yeah, so
Yeah.
to be concise, I typed them out too. But yeah.
But then when I printed these out, I was just surprised by just how much got spat out that printer. And just, you know, I knew there was a lot of value in there as I was going along in the book, but just how much came out was incredible. And, you know, I think there's a lot we can learn from Miss Uta Hagen. And I think she was quite an imposing figure in real life from what I can pick up and gather, right, Jared? As often these acting practitioners tend to be, right?
Yeah, a personality, a presence, a really strong point of view, passionate. You know, a passionate person.
And quite often that's what you need, right, to get these ideas across. Is that personality, right? I guess just my understanding of her before this point was quite surface value. You know, a couple of mentions in workshops, a couple of exercises in workshops and stuff, and it was really valuable and useful for me just to get this sort of more comprehensive look at her approach. And
was this the first time that you went through and was this the first time that you went through and read this book or started to read it? Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I first bought the book maybe in 1988, 89-ish, or around that time, and read it then. And then I've read it a couple of times throughout my life, and because the intention of this time reading it was like really purposeful so that we could have some intelligent conversations, I was seeing things and learning things that I know I must have read before, but I didn't understand them the way that I understood them this time through. And I was like, oh my God, another brilliant idea. Oh my God, that's another brilliant idea. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm so just saying I'm so appreciative of the fact that you and I are challenging each other to continue to dig in and learn, you know, look back, go back, but dig in deep. I'm loving it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, likewise, and getting the opportunity to share it with everybody as well. Like, whilst we have these conversations, is just this added benefit as well, isn't it? So I mean, we've got a ton to unpack and a ton to look at, and you're right. You know, we could be looking at the minutiae here. Let's just see where we go as we back Uta Hagen, respect for acting, back and forth, like a bit like a tennis match. We can add bits and question bits and add parts from our own experiences as we go through this. And hopefully, you know, we do recommend, guys, you go away and you read this yourself, and so it's all available out there, right?
So the Respect for Acting was written in 1973. I was 2 years old at the time. You weren't even thought of at the time, young man.
I was a twinkle in my mother and father's eye.
She followed it up years later here. Challenge for the Actor. That's her second one. Look, you see the reflection on my Ring camera in there. And then there's the two DVD set of video of her teaching the class. And actually, I sent you the link because I believe that HB Studios posted this. So up on YouTube, there's an actual link to watch the 3+ hours of the videos. It's all the work, the exercises from the book, you know, from this other book, and Uta Hagen teaching. So what a wonderful resource that it's posted up there for everyone to watch. But let's jump. I'm excited. Let's jump in.
Let's jump right in. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess tonight, you know, what it's all going to be about is this part one, which seems to be, from my understanding, laying a lot of foundations as to where her ideas are coming from, where her exercises maybe stem from, right? Part one is called literally The Actor, right? And she sort of breaks up that into 7 subsections, right? So, which we'll race through tonight and cover a lot of these, right? You know, for example, concept and thinking, and even walking and talking is considered in this section, right? And all of her ideas. And I think throughout her writing, it is beautifully eloquent, quite funny as well, quite tongue-in-cheek, a lot of it, which is a good fun to read. But also you can instantly pick up a lot of these ideas that she's painting and illustrating, and I don't know, like so much of this, I've been there. I've totally been there, and I've not had the words or the strategies to work out of it. And when she illustrates quite a lot of blockages that actors might face and potential ways out of it as well, like those were real eye openers for me. You know, like I felt those things, and I just maybe haven't had the ways out before. And I'd love to try a lot of these things that I mentioned out. Definitely.
Agreed.
But she starts with this, right, Jared? She says, or roughly near the start, she used to believe that people were born to be an actor, that it was all instinct, and that actors, when they go on the stage, they maybe just leave it all to chance. They don't know what they're doing on the stage, and that she sort of has changed and refined her ideas over the years. And what's your beliefs on that? Are people born to be actors, Jared? What do you think?
I think partly. I think that there are people that are naturally allow themselves to be more vulnerable, people that are more comfortable expressing what's going on inside of them, people that have a true connection with empathy and sympathy for others. And so whether they're born with it or that's how they were raised, that it was cultivated, they were raised in an environment where they were permitted to feel and express, that I think it's those people that are more natural at the beginning stages of their career. Obviously, this is a craft and there are tools and techniques that actors should study and should learn. But yeah, I do think that there are some people that are naturally drawn to this, that are naturally gifted in a way. That doesn't mean that if you're not naturally gifted in a certain way that you couldn't overcome that through study and hard work and application. But yeah, I do. I think that sometimes people have it. They've got that charisma, that quality about them, and others just don't. And so then you maybe have to work a little bit harder. But it's not all or nothing. Yeah, it's not all or nothing. That's my thought. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat in a similar camp. But I mean, I guess this bleeds into, and you know what, to try and do this sequentially in an order is going to be a bit messy. There's going to be ideas all over the place, right? But
well, I wrote down my page numbers. I don't know if you were that thorough.
in places, it might be a bit more mixed up. But bleeding into sort of her ideas on talent, like that well, some people are just geniuses, she said. You can see some examples on the stage of people being absolute geniuses on stage, but she mentioned for most of us, talent is not enough, that we do need this undercurrent of working hard, of being on a journey. Yeah, shout out to Jared, absolutely. Jared,
hey, Bobby,
legend. Bobby Iceman in the house. Thanks, Bobby. But yeah, I think many actors might go into this career, might go into approaching this as a few people have told me I'm good at this, and that is going to be enough for me. That's going to be enough for me to get by. But in my experience, in my opinion of working with other actors and stuff, you do need that undercurrent of hard work and to be able to work on craft and technique underneath, right? So yeah, I guess that's my little caveat on that.
In the introduction section, and I think it ties into the. Actually, before I make the comment, maybe if anybody on that's watching, if you want to give your thoughts around, are people just naturally born with it? Are people naturally talented, or is it a combination of hard work and training? Can you overcome it? Yeah, just share. Hey, Bobby, thank you for the comments. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah, do check out Jared's play. Thanks, brother. Available on YouTube, right, Jared?
Yeah. But yeah, post comments about you. But as Adam and I are talking, just add your comments and we'll weave them into our conversation. But she was talking about, and this ties back into the title of Respect for Acting. I think I'm on page 4 or so, where she's talking about how untrained actors will just plunge in and work on Hamlet as their first thing. Maybe you've been on a horse, maybe you've done a little bit of horseback riding, but would you enter yourself into the Kentucky Derby? Maybe you've driven a car and you know how to drive a car, but would you enter into like an Indy 500 race? Like the lack of respect that people have about what we do and what we're passionate about, it drives me up a wall, Adam. It really does. It drives me crazy that you get people that give feedback that aren't trained, that don't know, actors that just go out there and try to do these plays. I don't know. It frustrates me so much. I can't even put it into words. the lack of respect for what we do that I see all the time, it just frustrates the heck out of me. I don't know. Maybe I need a drink.
No, I know. No, it's an incredibly bad point, and I guess it's been a constant thing we keep coming back to in these chats that we have in these podcasts. That it seems to be a lot of people out there are concerned with the end goals, about the sort of outward sort of outcomes, rather than it being about the journey and the love of the craft on a day-to-day basis, right? Man, I wish my notes were more organized. But I know there's a mention of that in the book even, right? Like that she mentions, that if you are equating success to these outward things, like that, it's only going to be short-lived. Like it's not going to last forever, and that actually it's this sort of day-to-day love of the craft and love of the journey that's going to sustain you through this for life, and that's about respect, isn't it? That's about respect for this craft as well, isn't it? It's not to say that these attainable, almost materialistic things are, they're byproducts of being in the craft of acting. Like they might happen, and they might not, they might come along, they might not, but you've got to love what you do. Like that's the main crux of it.
You've got to love it, and you've got to respect it. So I think that the title for the book, Respect for Acting, I kept on going back to that as such a thoughtful and important title, that it really is. It's about respecting yourself in the art. It's about respecting the craft and the art itself. It's about respecting careers. It's about respecting the collaboration. It's about the total respect. Hey, so I see maybe you're reading. Do you want to share some thoughts on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to scroll up here. So thanks, Jordell, for you joining in with this chat here. Jordell believes that talent is with anything you do. Sometimes you just need to understand that the potential is there. Be yourself. Not only the unknown and aspiring actors get great roles, there's plenty of opportunity for an underdog to get a great role and own it. And absolutely, I think even within that, right, you've got to see yourself as a contemporary to all actors out there. That you can work hard, you can put in the time and the effort, and if you're not quite there at that level of other actors, that eventually, with time and effort and practice and stuff, that you can get there as well, Like
compare it to any other profession. Maybe you can play a little basketball, but would you go audition for the NBA? Maybe you make a nice souffle at home, but are you ready to go open up a restaurant and become a professional chef? Right? You have to respect the careers. Hey, I've got some thoughts about the chapter called Concept. I wrote out a bunch of those. Can we jump there?
Yeah, let's go to Concept. Yeah. That's the next chapter.
So you and I have talked about this a lot, where back in the day, acting was very, she calls it representational versus presentational. Representational is the indicating, the showing. If I'm angry, I'll do certain gestures that make me angry. And then the presentational is the actual feeling of it. We talk about Bernhardt versus Duza. They were both playing the same role on two different stages. And in one moment, Sarah Bernhardt makes a physical gesture. And then on the other stage, Eleanor Duza blushes. And they talk about Duza's blush. And so I'm struggling a little bit with the terms representational and presentational now. I sort of, I use presentational as the way that I explain presenting, physically gesturing. And that's what she's calling representational. So we're calling it, different things.
Yeah, I have to clarify that as well. Because, that would be my understanding of it too. And I was kind of like, I need to back this up with my understanding.
It's just calling it something else. And so I call the presentational, the one where you're actually experiencing it, I call it experiential, right? So I've got those terms, presentational and experiential, right? She's calling it representational and presentational. It's the same thing. Way back in the day, the custom was and the accepted way of acting before we, moved into the world of, what we know today. Acting was about presenting or representing the emotion. We recognized certain gestures as being connected to a given emotion. But what's comfortable for us now is not being hit on the head and shown it, but we watch the true experience of that. And I think it's a really important point.
Yeah, and I think it's an important one because we're the best will in the world, right? To be a truthful, realistic actor. I'm sure that we all fall into, from time to time, this presentational form of acting, even we don't. I'm sorry, like when we present, sort of thing within our acting, even if we don't want to. Like it struck me, right? And I guess my way of squaring it off in my head when I was trying to figure out these definitions a little bit. In Uta Hagen's world, representational might be for like the benefit of the audience, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that we're playing to them. And in Uta Hagen's world, the presentational might be for the benefit of like the character that we're playing, maybe. That's how I was trying to square it off in my head a little bit. But I've been there definitely when I've been playing comic characters, and you feel the audience is enjoying that a little bit. What just like sort of move my head a little bit like this and just sort of play around with this a little bit. And, I've got another reaction there, and so, you start to become aware that you can do certain things to make the audience sort of feel something. And that's a void I've been sucked into, certainly with comic characters that I've played in the past, definitely.
That's a good point. It's not that it's right or wrong, that there's opportunities and moments where one might be, it might be a smarter choice in order to create an experience for the audience that an experiential version of it may not help fulfill. Yeah, sure. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just different.
No, but that said, I could have probably even got a bigger laugh had I not played into that, I think, in those times. Had I not played up to that, went for the sort of harder work of actually sort of going through the feelings of it. It just sort of struck me when I was reading that, She mentions it herself, right? I think she's talking about being in a Chekhov scene and she cocks her head back and gets, every night she does this, she gets an applause from the audience. Right. And she knows she cocks her head back, she's going to get that applause sort of thing. And I think it's just something to be wary of as actors, right? Certainly, like, the more we do a role, the more frequent we're having to show up and play the role. And we know there's certain moments that we can hit that just sort of, if I do that, like, that's it. I've sort of ticked off that in the scene. But it's much harder work. It's much harder work to try and keep it fresh all the time, to try and keep finding new discoveries and things rather than just hitting moments.
I've experienced that too, where a physical action triggers a response from the audience, and then one night it doesn't, and then I blame the audience, like it's their fault. Like on a matinee, they don't get the gag that was very clear in previous shows, and you go, oh, it's them. And it's, what a horrible thought for an actor to have, to go blame the audience for not getting it, right? I was being lazy. Yeah, and we've all been there, right?
Yeah. You go back to the dressing room, you say, oh, what a bad audience that was.
What a bad audience today.
No, absolutely. I think it's just an important thing to admit, right? Like, even Uta Hagen is saying that she falls into this, and you're right. There are times where it might serve us, but yeah, it just sort of sprung that up for me, Yeah. And then I thought it was really, really sweet, the way she puts this in her sort of tongue-in-cheek manner. At this point, she talks about the representational actor who's come off stage and apologizes to everybody because they cried real tears in the scene. Right. And they felt, that it muddies and blurs the acting that they were doing because they were actually really sort of living it, and they apologized to everybody. And I guess we've come quite far from that, really, haven't we, in sort of modern acting in these days.
I've heard another story, the inverse of it. I think it was about Sir Laurence Olivier was performing, an iconic role and was incredibly emotional and was very much in feeling. and backstage in the dressing room was tearing up the dressing room in like a fit of rage. And somebody had said to him, like, that was the most amazing performance that I've ever seen. Why are you so angry? He says, because I have no idea what I did. I have no way of reproducing that. You know, it was so experiential in the moment that he got so lost in that moment that he was truly there. He's got no way of replicating that. And the kind of actor he was, he wanted to be in control of that, to be able to then replicate it, you know, for the next show, and he couldn't.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby made a comment earlier. I think this goes back to, you know, the natural gifts that, yeah, like talking about the wrestlers. Yeah, sometimes there are, and I don't know, Bobby, if you're talking about like the professional wrestling on TV or wrestlers like in college or the Olympics, but yeah, some people are just naturally gifted, that they have a specific skill. Their body is pulled to one way where they can naturally do it, and then through talent and training they can enhance that. Yeah.
Shout out to Joel though. Yeah, absolutely. We'll check that out. And yeah, congratulations, my friend, on your journey as an actor. We wish you all the very best on your journey. And Bobby, absolutely, a bad audience is like a bad date. It's never about you. You know, it's all about them. It's all about them. Absolutely. Yeah, a few more little bits on concept there, Jared.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, she mentions, you know, we should be working so hard that we're almost wearing the pants of the character. She does mention that. I didn't know whether it was American pants or British pants that she was meaning there. But you know, it's that's pretty detailed work, right? If any pants of any description you end up wearing of the character, that's quite full on, isn't it? Yes. But the bit I love, she's talking about some of her experiences of sort of moving from the amateur world of acting into the professional realm, and I think it's really interesting how she puts it. You know, her idea of the amateur. You know, she says, well, it used to be that an amateur was somebody that loved the profession.
I love that quote.
Yeah. That's a term. Now it seems almost a derogatory term, you know, in these days, the way it's used. But
and when you say now, she wrote that in 1973, right? And it still feels like that the word amateur has a negative connotation, but like the original definition, what you're talking about, that the amateur was the true lover of it. Like, yeah, let me just be an amateur for the rest of my career.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, in this chapter, she starts to introduce her sort of earlier experiences of working on stage and stuff. And she says, well, the definition between, or the distinction between amateur and professionals, the professionals are paid. It doesn't necessarily mean they're more skilled than some of the amateurs that are there that really love it. But I loved her description of working on this Chekhov play, and you know, the moment between in the sequel between Nina and Constantine. If you don't know the play, it doesn't really matter. But the idea being that the whole family rush on to this quite dramatic moment, and the family should be eating dinner somewhere, you know, in another room in the play. Now, usually in a scenario, the actors would be probably off in the wings, having a chat, waiting to come on or whatever. But the director she was working with sort of made all the actors sit down at a dining table, made them all eat a meal, decide on what they'd be eating, really, really detailed work, like where the cutlery was laid out, what they'd be talking about. They improvised some of this scene and things, and was making the actors, before coming on stage, sort of sit around this table and do this every single sort of night, every single performance. So they were coming on, living the circumstances that they were in. The audience never saw a thing of this. They'd never see any of that. It was purely for the actors, to connect them, to make them part of the same world and things like that. Yeah. And I guess this is a theme she keeps on going back to throughout the part of the book that I've read anyway, is about the specificity and the detail, right, that needs to go in to creating a character and to acting, really, you know. And I think that's a marvelous like story. It's this whole iceberg thing, isn't it? That we only ever see the tip of the iceberg, that there's so much going on underneath, and that there's a beautiful example, right, of doing things for your character and your characters that you're with, and not for the audience. You know, the audience get the benefit because they get these actors that come on the stage full of life and full of inner life and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, I just think that's marvelous, you know. And Chekhov's full of that, like, you know, opportunities to be able to explore in that way. You know, there's tons going on the surface for those characters.
Curious if anybody who's watching us now, have you guys ever done any work off stage as the moment before you enter the reality of where you've just come from, and what was your experience? Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful example of how living truthfully in the moment, off stage, can propel you into life when you walk onto the stage. Beautiful thing.
No,
Beautiful thing. So still inside the concept section, she says on page 14, if you're interested, Adam, mental brilliance is not essential. An actor can intellectualize himself out of real acting impulses. You know, so sometimes you could overthink things. Yes, it's good to know and to understand, to be able to articulate, but trust your body, trust your instincts. Don't overthink things. I think tension is the actor's nemesis, right? And if actors don't have a process to get rid of tension, they really sabotage themselves. And I have this thought that tension is suppressed impulses. Like an actor's on stage and they have this impulse to do something, to say something, to move in a certain way, to emote, to some sort of action, but their head gets in the way and then they suppress it. And all those suppressed impulses and suppressed instincts build up in your body as tension. And it cripples the actor, right? And so don't overthink things, don't intellectualize things. Just be an intelligent, fluid actor and just let it all out.
Fluidity, I think, yeah, just being a key part there. And no, that is lovely. I guess on concept, the only bit that I had, in fact, I did have a couple of notes there actually, but I laughed out loud, Jared. I've got them, you know, spat out my mint tea when I read it, when she mentions about, you know, that the actor that, you know, does have this obligation to work on their voice and their body, you know, and that it's inexcusable, almost, she says. I can't remember the exact quote, but inexcusable to do Romeo and Juliet in a Brooklyn accent. And it just reminded me of the time that you mentioned. Yeah, you didn't mention
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to berry season, not to praise him. See the evil the men do lives. Oh, it was horrible, Adam. It was so bad. It was I mean, it shouldn't. Many years ago, I was cast in the worst casting decision that was ever made in community theater. I was cast as the Wiz in The Wiz. Me, right?
Wow.
It was and I said to the director, I go, are you sure? I said, maybe a flying monkey. Are you really sure? Yeah, it was a bad decision. My Brooklyn Mark Antony was even worse. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Oh, I come to berry season to praise him. It's so bad. But I've got good memories. I've got good stories.
Remembering our previous conversations about that when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's great. That's lovely.
But yeah, so part of being a professional actor, obviously, is not just working on how to feel something, but yes, you need to work on your voice, your body, your breathing. It's everything, right? Respect for acting is not just about emotions. It's not just about character. Your body is your instrument, and if you're not working on your instrument, you're not being as respectful as you could be.
Yeah, and this thing we go back to again. You know, we mentioned it earlier, but talent alone is not enough. You know, that helped me in the face. Like, whoa, like, you know, it's something she mentions a couple of times. Like, just don't rely on it, right? That alone, because you become complacent. You maybe don't have the proper tools that you can use for the job that you're in, and you know, it's helpful. And like, I think it's really interesting how she defines talent. You know, she says talent is an amalgam of high sensitivity, easy vulnerability, high sensory equipment, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, a vivid imagination, a grip on reality, and the desire to communicate one's own experience and sensations to make oneself heard and seen. I think she beautifully sort of encapsulates all of the nuance and yeah, just it is like poetry in motion, right? When you see a talented actor, you can't quite put your finger on, like, she's putting words, like, what you see and feel when you see somebody that's just got it on the
Yeah.
stage, right? But to rely on that alone, I think would be foolish, you know? I think it's, yeah.
Well, think about the different jobs that we as actors have. So maybe on stage, when it's one time through, you can rely on some charisma, some talent, some instinct. But if you're in film and TV and you've got multiple takes, and you're starting at 6 a.m. and you're going all the way into late day, and you're shooting the same scene again and again, talent alone is not going to help you create continuity in your performance enough for the editor and the director to be able to piece that story together. It's not just about talent. You have to be a craftsman. You've got to be a skilled craftsman to be able to, and think about, you know, getting a wonderful reputation so that you get booked again and again. If you have the ability throughout the day of shooting to deliver emotionally and physically, all of your performance have continuity so that the other people can assemble the story later on, you've made their job so much easier, right? That's craft. That's a skilled craft, and that's not just talent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Different jobs, different roles, they'll require different things. Like, beautifully put, Jared, I think, you know. And yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. Yeah, I've got a little end bit for concept. Did you have anything else in concept, Jared?
Yeah, no, you and I have covered everything that I jotted down for concept. Look at this. We're 36 minutes in, and we've done section 1 of part 1. And yeah, there's a lot. This is gonna be wonderful.
Oh, those are fun. Those are fun. This book is, you know, absolute fire. I'm loving it. Like, I really like this. Sorry, it's just a little aside as to how she sort of ended this chapter on concept. You know, she says, set your own goals and set them for your own approval and those of your colleagues whom you truly respect.
I wrote that down too. Yeah.
Boom.
I agree with it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it because so often, and I think it goes back to that discussion we were having earlier on, you know, that thing you were saying, it just makes me pissed off. You were saying, you know, like, that people don't have the respect for the craft, that maybe their eyes are widened and they're tempted by exterior things such as landing the movie role, getting an award, landing the agent, all that stuff, which is fine.
All good stuff. Yeah, all good stuff.
That is maybe for the approval of people who maybe don't really care, you know, like, about those things. You might achieve those things and then feel a bit hollow and empty inside. And it's about really looking inward and deciding, you know, what are the things that's going to make me feel fulfilled and happy? Who are people that I really respect in this world, in this industry, that have the same values as me? And because it is this sort of industry, you can just be led in so many different directions, right? In so many different paths. And she mentions this as well, I think, in this chapter, but everybody can be a critic. You know, everybody can take you aside and give you an opinion and tell you a bit about their, you know, what they thought about your performance and things. Yeah, you've got to kind of stay true to yourself, you know.
You went all the way back to page 4. We were on 18, but you went back to page 4. She says, somebody said to, you know, I think that your Camille should use more rouge, or don't you think that you should gasp a little more in this particular moment? Everybody's a critic, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you know, it leads us on nicely, right, to this next chapter of identity, right? Knowing your own values, knowing what you want to achieve in the world of acting, and not being swayed and taken in, you know, any direction, any opportunity that presents itself to you, because you could end up in some hairy situations. And I think this chapter, identity, right, packs a real punch as well.
Yeah, I really like this one. I've got a bunch of thoughts on it. What's the first thing that jumped out at you in the identity chapter?
Well, it came in the form of a question, actually, because she says it's important that actors find a sense of their own self-identity, and you need to find out who you are. So I was going to say to you, Jared, who are you? Who is Jared? That's a question.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately respond with, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a son, I'm a brother. Those are like the core identities of who I am. I was thinking about this the other day, having a conversation about where you prioritize how, like, if I was going to say, are you well, not you because you're not from America, but are you a white Christian American, or are you a Christian American Caucasian? Like, what do you, like, what order do you rank or put the one that you feel most connected to? You know, like, where do you put your race, your nationality, your religion in terms of order? And the first one will be the one that you feel the most identifies you, you know, who you are. Yeah, I was having this conversation with my wife the other day about that too. Yeah, but like, who am I? Look, I know that I'm an actor, an acting teacher, an acting coach. But if you know, gun to my head, who am I? You know, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. You know, I'm a loyal friend. I'm a good son. You know, I'm a devoted brother. Like that. That's who I am. And if you don't ask yourself that and answer that as the character, and you don't even know who you really are as the character, that's probably a deficiency in your process when creating this real person. Because like you and I, we both have opinions about who we actually are. And your character should equally know exactly who they are too. What about you? I was going to ask you, you know, like, who were you? But yeah, you were about to ask something, so or say something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in terms of like, you know, it's interesting, you know, because you can also answer that question into like how you think you are seen in the industry as well. And I think that's quite often where we can get sucked into with that question. And like, you know, if you were to ask me that question in terms of an industry lens, then I'm like, I'm a working class Scottish guy, you know, and I start going into those categories and those territories. I think what Uta is arguing in this chapter is that this, you know, having a intimate connection with who you are can be the sort of stem point for much of your acting to grow, right? Like it can be seeds for which the sort of the flowers can spring from, you know, as elements of your own life, right? And that we shouldn't narrow who we are. Like, I don't know if you took notes on this part about the apple, Jared, you know, that she mentions, you know, that we're not a piece of the apple, you know, like possibly what I just did there, working class Scottish guy, yeah.
Just one
piece of the apple.
Yeah.
So it's a bite, right? But what we need to take into account here is the whole apple, and actually we are very different people in very different circumstances. I'm completely different to you right now to how I'd be down the pub with my friends I went to school with. Like, for a start, you probably wouldn't even understand me when I was talking about it, you know.
You're talking that Scottish gibberish.
All that, yeah, that fake stuff.
What's it called? Is there like a specific word that you call like the Scottish dialect?
Well, in Aberdeen, in the northeast of Scotland, we call it Doric. Up here, Doric is what we speak. Doric, yeah.
How do you say how are you in Doric?
Fit like man.
Who? What?
It'd be fit like men.
Fit like me.
Yeah, like how are you doing, man? Kind of like that. Yeah. But you know, case in point, right? Like, with different people,
you wouldn't do that if you were in your professional setting. That wouldn't come out of your mouth. Yeah.
And this idea from Uta, right, that we can feed on all of these different aspects, you know, in our lives, you know, and the richer our lives, and you know, the more varied our lives are, the more we can draw from. Is why, you know, in a nutshell, go from this. Am I along those lines, Jared? Is that
you're spot on. It's so later on. There's an exercise called change of self, which we'll eventually get to. And when I was taking classes from a guy who had studied with Uta Hagen, we were working on the change of self exercise in class, like the week or so before. I don't know if I told you this story offline.
No.
He and I were talking on the phone. He was walking in, I don't know, some rough area of the neighborhood. He was walking a rough area neighborhood, and he was on the phone with me, just talking, and he was a teacher. He was playing the role of the teacher. He was knowledgeable, teaching, educating, answering questions, helping me, gain a better perspective on this particular technique. And while he was walking in this rough area of the neighborhood, he bumped into an ex-girlfriend, and he says to me, "Hey, hold on a second." He didn't hang up. He didn't put me on mute. He just pulled the phone away from his mouth, and he started talking to his ex-girlfriend, and he turned into a Casanova, and his entire energy changed, and he became this really sensual, sexy guy. And this confidence that was just exuding from him was so palpable and evident to me, just eavesdropping in on it. So they have this conversation, and she leaves. He comes back to me, and he's right back into teacher mode. He walks a little bit farther, and he's confronted by some rough guy, and it seemed like there was going to be some sort of a confrontation, some sort of a fight was about to happen. And he pulled the phone away from his mouth, and he looked at the guy, and he says, "Do it." He says, I've had a really shit week. You don't want to be messing with me this week, but if you want to do it, let's go. Let's just go right now. And this animal came out in him. And that guy moved on, and he came back talking to me and went right back to being the teacher. And I just started laughing. I'm like, he literally just brought to life the different parts of himself based upon the circumstances that he was in, the people that he was dealing with, that they are all him. They're all bites of that apple. They're just pieces of who he was. And for me, it was so serendipitous that it actually happened, but it was that conversation that I had with him and that experience that helped bring this particular exercise to life, where I was then able to then apply it and replicate it in my work. I took the concept and I understood exactly what it meant, how to do it, how you become a different self. It's great.
Wow, no, that's a very powerful representation of that idea, right? Because usually you don't get it in that sort of microscopic moment.
It was almost abundance, like right? And maybe he did, right? Maybe everything was all bullshit and nobody was there.
Nobody was actually there. He was just a bit crazy.
He was just teaching.
But he was teaching. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, but I think, I just speaking from personal experience, would definitely limit probably, like my identity, based on what I think other people perceive me as. And then I don't fully respect all the wealth of experience and things that I can draw upon for characters, and she pushes back, right? She brings up this argument of people saying, well, if I use myself for the inspiration for my characters in acting, aren't all of my parts going to become the same thing? Is something that, people often bring that up with her, right? And she brings up the apple anecdote, right? Of like, that you're the whole apple. There's lots and lots to you, sort of thing. It's just about discovering these things, and I think this sort of bleeds into another chapter, but I think it is relevant to this just now. We talk on the phone and things, and I was telling you about some stresses I had going on in my life just the other week, which we won't go into, because you don't need to psychoanalyze with acting. That's the other thing that she mentions, right? You don't need to bring too much of your own life and why you behave in certain ways and stuff. But you were saying, well, Adam, you're super stressed right now, but why not take a moment to sort of take everything in, absorb everything that's around you, sort of thing, and feel like, I can sort of use this at a later date, sort of thing. This is life experience that I can use in things, and I think that's a very useful, helpful thing for actors to keep in mind, right? We can always be drawing on our own life experiences in some way within our work,
And tying it back to change of self and identity, recognizing what energy or what sub-personality you are operating from, depending upon what those external stressors are in your circumstances in your life. Are you in actor mode? Are you in husband mode? Are you in teacher mode? Are you in protector mode? Are you in, disciplined, obedient son mode? Are you, all these different things, these different personalities, they're all aspects of who you are.
Yeah. No, 100%. Absolutely. So we've covered the whole pushback on what I might become this a bit samey, and she mentions again, I think it's so lovely, these tongue-in-cheek moments that she brings up. She says, well, there are actually some people on screen and you know, in film that do play the same part all the time. They
And
found
they've got a
a
wonderful
niche
career.
in the market. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and that works for some people, and that's fine, right?
yeah,
But she says the most joy that she's discovered is sort of being able to. She mentions it, right, that somebody had seen several of her performances and they wanted to
yeah,
meet her in real life because they wanted to know what she was really like in real life because she was so
yeah.
different in every part. What a compliment that must be,
So
you know?
I have a funny story about that. I played a part where I was twin brothers, a good brother and a really evil brother. And I did a lot of work creating different physicality and behavior and voice and everything. They were different people. And a guy came up to me afterwards who I know around town. We've never socialized together, but I know him. He knows who I am. And he happened to be at the play. And he asked me who played the evil brother. He wanted to meet him. And it was me, right? I played both the good brother and the bad brother. And I immediately said, you know, like, you're messing with me, because obviously it was me. I mean, I did okay, but I wasn't that good that that it was unrecognizable that it was actually me. And I'm like, this guy must be smoking something, because you know. But look, maybe I did such a good job for him in that particular moment that I became unrecognizable. But
Mm,
that evil character was not completely fictitious, right? I had to look to a different aspect of who I am, a part of who
yeah,
I am that never comes out, that is not part of my daily life, but it exists somewhere in me that I was able to, you know, pull out and create this other self.
yeah.
But yeah, similar. I thought when I was reading that part about when people wanted to meet her to see who she really was, it just reminded me of that one part. It was like, he wants to meet this other guy. I'm like, no, that was me, and you're probably just stoned.
Yeah. Well, that is what I love about this book as well. Like the way she puts things, you can totally relate it to. I've
Yeah,
done that. I've experienced that as an actor. You know,
yeah. I
it's
had
really
that. Yeah, I had that a lot throughout while I was reading this. Like, oh yeah, been there, done that. I can
yeah,
relate
yeah.
to that.
Just real quick, you know, a couple other things on this identity
Yeah,
chapter. She mentions about how we can be copied and how we can copy and be influenced by other actors that we might like, you know, that we might sort of admire. She sort of mentions this, and she just sort of, I don't know, just plays around with the idea a little bit. I don't think she fully commits to saying it's like the most awful thing in the world, sort of thing. She kind of discourages it, you know, like. And she says maybe elements might be useful. I think there is something in us really liking an actor's performance. So, certainly from my part, certainly in the early days of being an actor as well, being drawn in, like, I loved Robert De Niro and all this stuff, and I maybe just spent the first year of my acting trying to emulate Robert De Niro. You know what I'm saying? Just like seeing what I saw on screen and being like, oh, I want to do that and I want to do this, you know. And obviously there's a lot of positives to that, 'cause he's an amazing actor, right? If you want to
sure.
follow in somebody's footsteps, do that. But you need to be you at the end of the day. You know, it's not an imitation, right? It's not
Ha-
a sort of tribute act. You want to
Have you
follow.
seen the Andy Garcia movie? I'm distracted by Bobby's comment right now. That is hysterical. But sorry guys, got distracted by a really cute hedgehog in my garden.
Bobby,
It's
that is part of
Bobby
your
is it's
identity. So use
I
it, my friends.
Bobby's a really talented actor too. I watch a couple of his videos. He's quite good. He's quite good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Bobby, that's funny. So Adam, there's a movie, Andy Garcia's movie called City Island. Have you heard of
Okay.
this?
So I haven't, no.
Um, Low budget, maybe an indie film. It was exceptional. He works as a prison guard who starts to take acting lessons, and he goes on an audition, and he loves Marlon Brando in The Godfather. And so he goes on this audition, and he's in front of the casting director, and he starts going, and he's doing the audition, but he's doing it as Marlon Brando in The Godfather, and they're all like, what are you doing? He's like, are you trying to do Brando? He's like, you know, he didn't know, right?
Yeah.
he so revered Marlon Brando in that role that that's what he thought acting was about. He was emulating that. And it was only until he let that go and just started to tell a story that was authentic to him that his career took off and like his true self came out. So yeah, you could love these actors and you could try to be inspired by them, but that's them, you know. You are the only you. Well, why would you want to suppress that at all?
And it's always that thing, right? Don't, you know, if you're playing a role, try not watch the film of anybody else that's played that role before, because it's going to sort of bleed into your subconscious somewhere, right? You're going to sort of take that in, and it will affect your own sort of
okay. I have opinions about that. Yeah, there's some teachers that will say, don't ever watch it because it's going to influence what you do, and I don't categorically say never do that. I think that if you're intelligent enough to watch somebody else's performance of a role that you're playing and you're using it for research to be informed about areas of the script that you're uncertain of, and you're looking for deeper insights, and you're intelligent enough to know not to replicate what you saw them do, then I think it's fine if it's used as a research tool. But if it's a crutch and you're just being lazy, then yeah, there's no point in doing it because you're just going to do a poor representation of what you see. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah. No, I think I felt. I'll admit, I'll throw up my hands. The latter of that examples there. You know, when I have done that in the past, that was a bit good, and then it just sort of drinks in somehow. That's sort of my experience with that. I need to have more sort of. Control over that, I guess, in that circumstance. But no, 100%. I think that's a very good point, Jared. You know, if you have the discipline to be able to take on board in an objective way, then great. You know, I think that's a useful point.
So, Adam, I'm seeing we've got 4 minutes left. I think we probably should not move on to chapter 3, substitution, because that's going to be a big one.
It's a big one, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's still a ton to unpack in this chapter, and maybe even we'll see what we do next week. But 1 or 2 exercises to try out from this chapter. You know, parts that she mentions in the substitution about sort of yawning and about feeling nauseous and things like that, which is really remarkable. We'll try them out, Jared, right, and see how it goes.
I did it, and as I was doing it, tears came to my eyes, and she said, you may even, you know, have tears come to your eyes. While it was literally happening to me, I'm like, oh my God, this is bizarre.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't read, in this chapter, she explicitly describes the physical sort of process of recreating certain, you know, things like coughing, yawning, things like that. So we might have some fun with that, eh? We might into that as well. But as always with these things, right? We did in a previous episode we did Declan Donlan's Acting in the Target, and we
got to chapter 1.
Yeah, we just love it. But like you know, we love just diving into this, right, and just sort of going back and forth and knocking it around these ideas. And do you know what, Jared? We just give it the time that these things need, right? We'll just see.
Fortunately, for you and me, we're not on any schedule where we have to accomplish anything specific by a certain date. So, yeah, look, next session we'll do substitution. We'll probably get to emotion memory and sense memory, which takes us through chapter 3, 4, 5. Out of 10 of the first section. So we'll stay here as long as we need to in order to have an in-depth, intelligent conversation that's enjoyable for us but beneficial to the people watching.
1,000,000%, and that's our aim. We want to add as much value as possible. And if you want to, guys, you know, we're going to be back in a couple of weeks' time. Do a bit of a read along with us. You know, we'll be covering the chapter part over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, and jump in, dive in, and continue this discussion that we've been having. Thank you very much. I think that might be Jacqueline from the studio. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Hey, Jacqueline, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us for the chat. And she's looking forward to the class tomorrow. Jared is coming on in to the studio to do a bit of a new technique, Jared, right? That you're trying out here, called the overlays technique. So We are
looking forward
excited
to doing that for you guys. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I say we close at least the book for now on chapters, well, the intro chapters, concept, identity. So we got through chapters 1 and 2, and we'll jump in next time, starting with substitution, and we'll go play. We'll explore.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. Jared, as always, I appreciate you and thank you so much for our time together. I'm loving this journey.
Yeah, so much fun.
Yeah, loving this deep dive. And thank you to all of you.
Yeah, thanks for the comments today.
In the comments, and you know, it's almost on a weekly basis. I get messages from somebody in some part of the world, Jared, that's listening into these podcasts, that's watching the Instagram lives, and it's wonderful just to be stretching out and reaching guys from everywhere. So we wish you all the best on that journey as actors. We know it's a difficult time right now, so yeah, dig deep, and you're doing the right thing, right? Just by embracing the world of acting craft, it's going to stand you in good stead in the future at some point. Absolutely. But thank you very much, Jared. And
Thanks,
until next time,
we'll
catch us again.
Stay safe.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.